How's it going, guys? Greg and John here today, and we are going to talk about this. I think this is the third week. Oh my God, I've lost count. It's been going on for so long. Of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Amber Heard's had a couple days of testimony, and here's my thought process on this. Was we originally, I just wanted to do like a podcast, because have like a real discussion. Because like the back and forth that John and I have when talking about this, because I've listened, if I haven't listened to all, I've at least listened to the vast majority of this trial, and definitely all of Amber Heard's testimony as the most recent part of it. And we have a podcast that I was like, we could just upload it to that. And so if there's, and we have a video recording going on right now. So if there's no video, there's no video. If there is a video, it's up. I decided, okay, you know what? Fine, screw it. Let's just throw it up there. Because, yeah, and like I know, like here's the truth. I personally, and I consume this trial way more than John does. I personally could do a video about this every day. Like if I really wanted to milk the most popular subject right now in entertainment media, I easily could, because I'm so up to date with it, and it's something I talk about with people all the time. And this would be like the third thing. The second thing was not even like a real. I was just like that dub of Jason Momoa.
Yeah, this would be the second real discussion about it. You did that one editorial piece.
Yeah, and the thing is though, is like I'll hear other videos and such, and it seems like you kind of have to be one-sided, especially if you're doing YouTube videos. It's pretty much you got to be like 100% all in Johnny Depp, you know.
That's how all debates work.
And no gray area whatsoever. I know right now, even saying that turns people off right away. And I do have my opinions about a lot more than just justice for Johnny or something like that. And so I'm just hoping that this can be more of an open discussion and really just talking the way how we talk when there isn't a camera rolling, and we're not worried about presentation or watch time,
comments,
or
feedback,
like really just
clicks.
Try to be honest, which is kind of the challenge with theirs on a much bigger global scale of be honest in front of a room full of people, and then knowing this is being broadcasted to the world and everyone's playing jury right now. So yeah, following up on everything, where to kick it off, I guess. There's a bit like questions like, is Amber Heard telling the truth or not? Is she telling the truth? And I don't know, it's probably more complicated than yes or no, right?
This whole thing seems more complicated than a simple yes or no, yeah.
It's like there's a lot of evidence to go against her, that they've managed to get physical evidence of like audio recordings and just testimonials of people,
countless messages.
Yeah, some real emotional testimonials too, to go against her. And I'll say this, I do have a hard time believing her. I do. I have a very difficult time believing her. When I watch her testify, I have a lot of the same thoughts that I think a lot of other people do. And I weirdly don't go on Twitter or scroll through the comments, because I try to first figure out how I'm feeling before I let myself be influenced by another thought. And then sometimes, then afterwards, I'll go on and I'll see how people are thinking. And I'm like, yeah, that is sort of where my head's at too. And it is something I try to figure out. You know, it's like one of the first things is I don't really watch the trial. I mainly listen. But when I would listen to Amber Heard, and especially during a lot of like the deep sighs and the way I describe it is it feels very theatrical. Like it sounds like it's almost a narration. Something about it would ring false to me, that I found myself watching her instead of simply listening to her. And like a lot of people, like one of the most joked about things is something that I definitely was thinking was the crying that she does seems fake. Because when someone cries, there's more than just tears. She doesn't have any tears. So that's like sign number one to me that this seems fake. The other part is like there's other signs of, your cheeks can turn red. There can be snot. There's cracking in the voice, like real cracking that happens. Your eyes turn red. There's a lot of that doesn't really seem like real tears. And I'm not going to be the kind of person who would say a person who has suffered domestic violence wouldn't recount a story like that, because everyone deals with DV differently. Everyone handles it differently, and everyone is at a different stage in their life when it comes to DV. A lot of people haven't gotten over it. A lot of people have been able to put it behind them, and a lot of people have gone to therapy. A lot haven't. So everyone has like a different way of recounting it. I would love to go into my life. I choose not to, only because I'm aware of the connection it has to other people that are still in my life, and I wouldn't want to then inadvertently put parts of their life out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't want to. It by association, it involves them.
Yeah, it's not only your story.
Yeah, and so that's a big part of why I choose not, and that's a choice I made before even we were doing YouTube. Like that was something I learned from Facebook of putting stuff out there, and I decided I'm just not going to do that. And so I do take the subject really serious. Some criticisms about Amber Heard I don't fully agree with. Of like this person wouldn't do that. I'm like, well, I have been around people like when I've had to tell my story to people, and I will talk to, if I don't really know the person, I can look them in the eyes, I can talk to them. I mean, it's a little something you told me that is so true though, is like 99% of us don't know what it's like. And again, this is what I mean. It's so easy for, if you are someone who has suffered from it, especially a woman, to put your experience onto how she's describing it, and then go, I wouldn't do that, and I know other people who wouldn't do that, so I believe she's false. Mm-hmm. At the same time, there's the flip side.
Yeah, everybody behaves differently.
Yeah, at the same time, there's the flip side though, where people who have suffered the stories that she is recounting might automatically believe her, mm-hmm. simply because of the fact that there's this identification, this catharsis, this feeling of bravery, mm-hmm. Because I do believe full-heartedly that there are so many women, like countless women, who have suffered domestic violence, who have suffered sexual assault, who then don't get a day in court, don't get a voice, are immediately shut down.
Anything.
There's no retribution. There's nothing. It's just damage that they then have to move forward with, and that falls on. Then it becomes only their responsibility, mm-hmm. to deal with that. And
that's a lonely, harsh struggle. I see it in friends of mine, even today, who have been through some things that have never received any kind of retribution, and less to just broad support. And it's really hard to watch. Mm-hmm. And it can be very hard. It can be very isolating for people.
So, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, both sides seem possible. Like, one way to look at it is, this is why I think she's lying. And another way to look at it is, like, this is why she's telling the truth, because why would she do this?
Well, yeah, and I mean, there are all sorts of conspiracy theories you can have. And I do believe that, there are some people out there who are sociopathic and who do connive. But I have trouble figuring out if that's really what's happening here, because I look at the situation, I go, okay, even if she was in this to get some big divorce settlement or something, or to take advantage of a cultural wave, it seems like
you're talking about like the beginning, like when she first got the restraining order, it got publicized, and then the op-ed piece.
The beginning and the perpetuation too, even because now this has become such a spiral of time, pain, and money, and she's countersuing, like Johnny Depp is countersuing her currently, and then she's going to countersue him again, and that suggests to me that at least either these two parties really believe in their stories, or she, if she is a sociopath, has just dug the hole so deep that she can't climb out now. And I find that like the last resort of thinking, I guess, is the sort of cartoon villainy of like, I'm going to be a sociopath, wreck your career, get your money, and skate away as some kind of social justice icon. It seems like this is a bad way to achieve that to me.
I mean, yeah.
Because I mean, at this point, I look at this situation, and I'm like, what is anyone gaining from this? And I mean, Johnny Depp certainly seems to be gaining in the public eye, but even the things that they have put into evidence don't really shine a flattering light on either of them, and they contribute to me more of that gray area. I mean, as it appears, especially after in light of that one particular tape they often replay of her going like, okay, I didn't slap you this way, I hit you, and defining the ways in which you can be hit, and what his response should or shouldn't be, and belittling him. Like, there are certain aspects of her behavior on record that do seem abusive and do seem like they could be outside just the genuine sort of, I don't know what to do in this situation. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of gray area, especially involving drugs, that I think just makes this whole situation really hard for me to get a clear read on. Because while I'm like, I don't think Johnny Depp is necessarily the monster, as they keep coming back to that motif of the monster, I believe the monster is based on something real, though, and is probably in there to some degree. And I mean, you look at the way he talks about her, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's some malice there. So it's one of those things where I don't think this is just a false situation that she has contrived just to get money. I guess is the one conclusion I can solidly maybe get close to.
Well, that's the thing. Is like there's more to come. There's more to come too, and like I said, we're all playing jury. That's where this all keeps coming back to. I mean, because talking about let's talk about the Johnny Depp side of things, because the flip side too also is, why would Johnny Depp go through all this if he really did do this? Because a lot of the time, like, maybe he just had enough evidence to kind of put her to shame, whatever. Like, if I'm playing devil's advocate on certain things. Because I like, it's Hollywood, and there's so many entertainment and music and movies, and granted it's a different time because of the Me Too movement and such, people take it more serious. At the same time, a lot of people still get away with shit all the time, and I really do think like this would have followed him, this would have followed him, but he was already on a rebound in a lot of ways if he just stuck true to his career. Like, it seems like he really cared, at least that's the way it perceived to me, because he was still doing movies. He did get Grindelwald, like he did have films coming. He got, like, Pirates 5 still came out and didn't make $1 billion, but it still made a lot of money. And it's like, there was enough. This is the most his truth has been out there. This is all these things that are being headlines and clipped out and actually making the news, that's been out there for years, and it's only now because of the trial that it's in the mainstream media. So that helps him out, because I think, at least in the court of public opinion, he's definitely won so many more people over. What were you talking about? There was something you said. You said a lot of thoughts, and so I was trying to do that thing where I was making a lot of mental notes, and I was like, oh, no, lost most of them.
Yeah. Is about Johnny Depp in the court of public opinion generally?
No. It was something else about her. I'm not sure. I was literally sitting watching the testimony of her and going, why don't I really believe her? And I think there are things I'm questionable about, for sure, like, especially with something that is not in the trial, but was making its way on social media, but I guess it might count as hearsay or some shit.
Objection, Your Honor.
Is you see, you're talking about like Johnny Depp's stories, and they're both painting each other not in the greatest light. Like, yeah, Johnny Depp, when he testifies, he has stories that go in there that don't paint him in the greatest light. But then when I hear I won't say but, however, when I hear the audio recordings and such, it still sounds like this is the same guy who's testifying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even at even when you get him like saying something horrible, it still sounds like, no, this lines up with the same guy. It doesn't seem like he's painting a false image.
It doesn't feel like he's orchestrating. Yeah.
Yeah. The skeptic in me will go, Johnny Depp is an amazing actor. Yeah.
I've been getting into character.
That's where the skeptic in me comes out, right? Yeah, maybe he just really knows what he's doing. And
I based my testimony on Keith Richards.
No, it seems really consistent, and he has a big reputation for being a certain type of individual to others. So it lines up still, even with the stuff that doesn't paint him as well in a good light that came out during when it was really his time with his witnesses and such. Whereas with Amber Heard, she really paints herself as like super duper innocent, like so innocent, not the aggressor. She's like such a victim, and he was this monstrosity. It's such the antithesis. It's such a wild antithesis. Mm-hmm. To there's like no gray area with her, you know,
yeah,
and the story she's telling that, I'm like, this doesn't at all, like, this just seems to contradict so much of the testimonials we've heard, the audios we've heard, all these things. And the other part of me does go to like with the, we will talk about some other stuff, but the when it comes to the acts of violence of like these just sheer, like, it's insane what she is describing, just insane what she this like,
it's horrific. Yeah.
It's horrific, and there are people who really suffer that, and worse, and sometimes leads to death. These are real things that she is describing, like terrible things. And a part, like, if she's telling the truth, then good on her. If she's telling the truth, then good. The part of me that makes me doubtful is when I'm like, how come there's like, she clearly would take videos and photos of him, like, he passed out, he's got a little bit of a temper tantrum right now, we're in an argument, let me record this, as a way to have something on him, to expose him in case. And it made me go, well, why don't she have like any photos of this? Sometimes when she's describing incidents, like, a big part of this whole ordeal is, the photos that did become famous, where when she got the restraining order and she was all bruised, and then she like went on a talk show, I think it was Corden, like the next day, and after that, the day of that supposed beating, and then she was fine, like no one saw anything on her, like a lot went to go, that was fake what she did. There's so much to support that was fake. So when she's describing this guy, it makes me questionable of how come there's not, like, when we're talking about domestic violence or sexual assault, it's so hard. The reason why it's so hard for women, especially, is because it's so hard to, like, get the perfect crime that is documented and videotaped and recorded in order to prove your point. It's so hard. So that's the thing that she could lean on. That's why I'm bringing up all these other things that she documented. So how come? And the thing is, so much of this is so volatile and emotional that I'm talking about kind of a logical way of thinking. When a lot of the time in toxic relationships, logic is thrown out of the window. Like, logically, they should have broken up a long time ago.
The toxicity is there to mask the logic.
Yeah. And you hear about the way they started their relationship. Like, both of their testimonies line up. Of they were both coming off of the heels. Like, Johnny Depp was still with his girlfriend, and according to his testimony, and she, I think, was in the middle of a divorce or separation, something of that nature. So they're both coming off the heels of, and ideally, when you're in a relationship that's ending, you want to be single for a while so you can heal and grieve from that, from such a commitment of that life partner that you had, and then go into a relationship. So when you have that whatever negativity has brewed up in you with that relationship, ideally you want to get over that first so you don't bring it into your next relationship. And it sounds like this was destined from the get-go to be something that was, oftentimes people mistake toxicity for passion. And
some people think you need those fights to keep you guys in a gravitational pull or something like that. And you have a situation that began out of, I'm going to assume, some level of trauma, two relationships dissolving, a new one coming out of that dissolution, but also between two people with, as this trial is well established, a lot of history of abuse in childhood, in their younger lives. And I definitely believe that those things can harmonize later on and can bring something, out of people. And to go back to what you said, like, that's the main I guess I sympathize in a way. I hesitate to pick one team, because the quote always comes back to me that there are three sides to any story. There's mine, yours, and the truth. And I feel like the truth always has to be somewhere in between. And the big thing about Amber Heard to me is that there are aspects of what she's willing to give up that don't seem to ring as true as what Johnny's willing to give up. It seems like his testimony, he was pretty much, they constantly asked him if they're reading his words correctly. Half those words are pretty unpleasant, and he's always just like, you did. So there is a certain willingness, I think, to accept some of that behavior. But the problem is, the deeper I dig, the more I'm like, well, that could be a tactic. You admit to some smaller things so that you can deny the bigger thing. Or, there's so many gray areas to play at and to look at. And I think ultimately the problem for me in just going, Johnny Depp must be right, is the fact that for a lot of these situations, he is allegedly on many a substance. And I just believe that things happen when you're unaware of yourself. So I can't fully discredit the idea that Amber Heard could be telling the truth. And I know that it's really hard for people in her position, which is what worries me the most, because if she is truly being fraudulent in these claims and is being the sociopath the court of public opinion has deemed her, that's bad. Like, that's bad for the future. That's bad for, that could set a precedent that could set the whole movement. And I know the Me Too movement is very contentious for people, and a lot of people don't really like it. And I feel like something like this could easily set the progress made by something like that back really heavily, or call further into doubt. Like, I get what people struggle with in the argument of, like, we believe all women immediately. But at the same time, to me, it's sort of like there better be some really extreme circumstances as to how these falsehoods were contrived, basically. Because, again, it just seems, to my moral compass, it's about the most vile thing you can do to fabricate something like this and then to draw it out into this kind of circus. So a part of me,
even like Amber Heard's ex-assistant came out talking about how Amber Heard, this is before the trial, stole her sexual assault story.
I mean, if that's true, that's disgusting. That's absolutely disgusting, because the problem is that it's really hard for a lot of women out there. I don't speak from experience, but I have seen the experiences of just friends alone.
No, that's what's so angering. That's what's angering about it. If she is not telling the truth, it's just that's the part of. I think the thing is that the thing, like, you do got to take a side. I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying, like, that's how the public on, like, social media makes one feel.
Yeah.
Like, you have to take a side, because in this court case, like with Johnny Depp, even if it was reactionary abuse, right? Even if it was reactionary, if he did indeed, like, fight back in any way or hit back, it's that could take him down in this specific legal case. A lot of people will defend him. And in this legal case, that's bad news for Johnny Depp. That could really result in him losing. So the part of it that I think Johnny Depp owns up to is, like, being at times emotionally abusive. I don't know if he's actually declared it, that he's talked about being like emotionally and verbally abusive. Even if it is reactionary abuse, it still is in that category.
That's demonstrably evident by the videos and the tapes that they show. Like, yeah, there's definitely toxicity and abuse in these rooms with these two
both
people.
Sides, yeah. Where I'm not trying to see, like, to give. There's this one part that really casts a lot of doubt when it came to, for me, in terms of the Johnny Depp side. There was this like text message that. Let me see if I can find it really quick. I'll just read it because I think it is important, and I don't think it might be brought up in the trial. I haven't seen it brought up in the trial yet, but I do think it's an important thing to bring up. Where she was talking with, here it is. I found it. It's been going around online. Johnny Depp's ex-assistant Stephen Deuters to Amber Heard. Where Amber told the story in a testimony recently about getting kicked by Johnny Depp when he was drugged up. And Stephen said, I think he's just texted you. He's incredibly apologetic and know that he has done wrong. He wants to get better now. He's been very explicit about that this morning. Feels like we're at a critical juncture. She says, yes, but I don't know how to be around him after what he did to me yesterday. I don't know if I can stay with him. Like, these are private text messages. He wants, and Steven says, he wants to see you so much he's distraught. Amber says, don't worry about the flights. I'll be taking care of them myself. Thank you. Look, he thinks he doesn't deserve this. Obviously, he has no idea what he did or to the extent that he did it. If someone was truly honest with him about how bad it really was, he'd be appalled. The man, and definitely wouldn't say to me that he doesn't deserve it. I'm sad he doesn't have a better way to really know the severity of his actions yesterday. Unfortunately for me, I remember in full detail everything that happened. And this is the kicker. No pun intended. Bad, terrible choice of words. Terrible choice of this. Unintentional joke. Yeah. This is Steven says he was appalled when I told him he kicked you. He cried. It was disgusting, and he knows it. I wasn't with him. This is where it's cut off, though.
Oh,
like you could say, I wasn't with him when he, and then it's cut off. So I don't know what the rest of that sentence is.
When he apologized and made everything right again.
Or I wasn't with him when he did it or something, you know. But this is like way before any of this other stuff was like really coming out. This is like still when they were like, no, let's make this relationship work.
Yeah.
You know? So,
well, yeah, I mean, and to think too, I mean, there's the evidence of this case alone, but I remember you way back, like sort of absorbing and being sent even more, stuff in the past.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's a moment like that. Like, that's a pretty interesting thing to me. And that's, again, the major gray area for me with Johnny Depp is like generally just the way it strikes me, the way people's accounts go. Yeah, it seems like he is a sweet, genuine, probably very caring guy when he's aware.
I know people that know him, and I also am very cautious of my bias that I could have simply because I love the actor Johnny Depp.
I love it, yeah.
And even when I thought, even before all this happened, and I thought his career was going weird and down, I was always rooting and would always watch the trailer if he was in it. You know, I was always curious. I'm always curious to see what he's doing. Like I'm always fascinated by him.
He's the star of my very favorite movie.
Yeah,
and several of my other favorite movies.
Yeah. He is a talent that I've always admired, and I've loved watching interviews with him, you know.
And I've wanted to be like
in the
past, you know.
Yeah. He's that kind of dude that you would see. You're just like, he just seems so cool. And
goals.
Guys like him, women like him, and he doesn't seem like an egomaniacal dude. He just seems like he really doesn't give a shit, and he's like cool and calm. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And has these fun idiosyncrasies that I just admire, you know. And there's this story, and not to make things much worse.
Every great story starts that way.
That it's not being brought up because I believe. Here's what I'll say. I full-heartedly believe Johnny Depp is telling his version of the truth.
That's how it appears. Yeah.
Even in these text messages, right, that I just read.
Yeah.
There's nothing of the account is he doesn't if he did it, he certainly doesn't remember it, and when being told he did it, he broke down crying. You know,
That feels like it tracks.
feels more like if he did do something, he wasn't full. He wasn't.
He did it.
Fucking. What's the fucking word?
He was inebriated.
Yeah, he was inebriated. Yeah.
He wasn't in control or aware of his full faculties. And
Like if he did do it, but
that's how it strikes. I mean, that would be absolutely diabolical if it were to come out that this is all an act on his side. Yeah, I mean, from him, I mean, it's still abuse, but it certainly seems as though the danger with Johnny Depp is more: is he hopped up? Is he coping? With toxic substances and whatnot, and is that leading to these retaliations and these outbursts, these lashings out, so to speak?
Yeah, like I remember years ago there was this. He told this story on Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton. I'm not finding it. There's like a 2-minute. There's like a 2-minute thing that he was talking about being bullied, specifically being bullied. And his mother, who obviously played a big influence into his development, like anyone who's around their mom growing up, they would. But in terms of his trauma of, explanation as to why he would be attracted to such a relationship, his mother played a big part. And he used to paint, he wouldn't talk about this side of his mother until this trial and all this shit. Versus on Inside the Actors Studio, he was telling a story about being bullied. And if I remember correctly, you could probably find it, and you could correct me if I get any of this wrong. If I remember correctly, the story he was telling was that if they start bullying you, take the rock and either threaten them or hit them with it. And then he said after he did one of those, I'm not going to say which one he did because I simply don't remember if he just threatened with it or actually hit them. I don't remember. But he said he did that, and they never bothered him again. So he's learned to that's how he deals with bullies. Granted, this interview was years ago. He's in his 50s by the time he married Amber Heard. People grow and I feel like I'm a different person every 2 to 3 years. I might look back on this conversation in 2 to 3 years, maybe even a week from now, or and then, depending on how this all goes, and be like, oh man, I actually think very differently than I did then. Not just about the subject, just about life in general. And so, to take something someone said like 20 years ago and apply it, that's why I think a lot of it's like silly to bring up, like in 1998 you did this, or something.
Yeah.
Like he's probably a completely different person then.
Yeah, it's like you can draw something from that, but also I feel like the passage of time needs the credit that it's due.
At the same time, this sentiment that like he didn't abuse these other people, so why would he do this now? And I'm like, fair, true. If he didn't harm them. Same time, this is a different relationship.
That was then.
Yeah, this is a different relationship coming off of one that was ending badly, and literally with someone who I do believe was the main one to provoke the main aggressor, the main initiator, Amber, who they have audio of them directly of him saying like you start physical fights, you start these fights, and she's like, yeah, I start these fights because you won't engage with me unless I hit you, like so that's just like it's pretty much an admission of guilt on theirs that she is the aggressor, she's the star. So that's why I think a lot of people believe that that where Johnny Depp comes from is reactionary abuse. That's why I keep saying that word, because he wouldn't just instigate this or start this, and she seems easily provoked.
Yeah,
and she's got abandonment issues, man. Like I get it. I understand the what I'm saying is I understand, not that I don't sympathize with the choice and actions. I don't want that to be misconstrued. I do understand abandonment issues very well, though, and to have a histrionic personality disorder, I'm not that well versed in it. But see, there's the other. I know I'm like zip-zapping around here, but that's the other part. Was like the Dr. Curry person who testified, talked about how I think she was saying she believed Amber Heard has histrionic personality disorder, and a lot of the symptoms of why she said that is shown during her testimony, like a lot of the things that she described are there, and I wasn't even thinking about that on the surface. Someone did. I saw on this was a thing I did see on social media of someone clipped out the part where because I listened to a testimony and I kind of forgot about all that because I'm just absorbing this whole thing, and then when I listened to it again, and then I continued watching her testimony. I'm like, yeah, this is all there. So I forgot the original thing I was talking about before, the histrionic personality disorder.
Well, and abandonment issues.
And abandonment, like a lot of things that like fall into this category, that the actions that are described of this individual that are caught on recordings and such do seem that way, of someone who does suffer from this damage. Mm-hmm. And then when I watch like a testimony and it doesn't ring sincere, but you were saying something that I'm like, that's also that could potentially be a fair point of she must be aware that the public is not in her favor, so she might be working extra hard to sell the story.
Yeah, and the burden of this particular trial is basically on her to prove that her account is correct beyond a shadow of a doubt. And so,
like, she might be telling the truth, but she might be playing up the emotions and being more animated.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know,
and like, I really need to cry.
Yeah, like, I don't know how law show to take this, but yeah, I mean, it's got to be really strange and uncomfortable for any person to do what is essentially a big, open, public therapy session.
Yeah,
where you tear open all the wounds, and I mean, I know there
where it depends on a few people, strangers, determining whether or not you are sincere.
Yeah, and whether
you're being truthful.
Yeah, and whether the abuse that at least you have experienced yourself, or that you feel is part of your reason for being here, is either legitimized or delegitimized based on those decisions and what those people have to say. And so, as much as there are body language experts out there, I've seen just as many videos in my life about body language experts just nailing people, and then the flip side where people go, yes, but there are like so many things that influence.
Really fast. You could have kept talking.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, didn't want you to miss a minute. But yeah, like, there's so many factors that contribute to body language, and yeah, like, they certainly could be indicative of her being disingenuous on the stand, but I feel like especially she is the loneliest person in that room no matter what, because she has to defend this really horrific account, which, if it's true, has to be emotionally difficult, to say the least. And if it's not true, it's got to be just as difficult in a totally other way that requires way more mental, spiritual, awful coordination.
Well, I mean, they have these videos of like what it's like when Johnny Depp shows up to court, and fans are like, "Yippee, Johnny, I love you, justice." And then Amber shows up, and it's not welcoming.
Amber turd.
It's not roll out the carpet for her.
Yeah, it's not like there's a team Amber that's just as vocal.
And then people who want to like attend the trial, a lot of them in the background who are sitting there, I don't know, but they kind of read like some of them are Johnny Depp fans. I'm not.
Well, and they've had to calm them down, or else kick them out. In the past.
The judges had to say that. Well, I think does a pretty good job, the judge, in trying to keep this even and moving along as best as she can.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's because like even though I have a really hard time like buying the sincerity of Amber Heard's testimony, because, and I did write down, like, I listened to the clip and I put down things that stood out to me that the Dr. Curry said, of like overly dramatic presentation. It's like the way she recounts stories sound like a someone put it to me like a romance novel. Yeah,
lots of embellishment.
Yeah. Impressionistic speech, very flowery, feels like it often lacks any substance. A big part is quick shift between emotions. Like, she'll do the face that like really like the crying face, like trying to cry, and then she could just switch out of it. It's bizarre. It is bizarre of just like this like it's not even like a recovery, of it. It's like a whoa, like it's like someone yelled cut.
Yeah, and then I guess
If someone like objects or something, yeah.
Yeah, so then are we to believe that those are decisions, or are those just how she expresses? I don't know. It's like I've met people who in just regular life who kind of meet that criteria.
The pain in the audio tapes, not when they're like, "I didn't hit you, Johnny," but like when she is divulging pain. Again, it's like, look, I don't think she's as talented of an actress as Johnny Depp, and it's when she's, like it is the thing of all these. We're trying to factor in like all the possible different circumstances. If we are to, obviously, I pretty much have an opinion on her, and I go, okay, let me assume now that she's telling the truth of why I might have a hard time believing her if she is telling the truth.
Yeah.
I do want to get into that bottle story. I do want to, because that's the one I am the most like trepidatious to touch. At the same time, there are things I've heard on both sides, and I'm like, well, let me talk about that. But what was I just talking about? I keep forgetting my train of thought.
We were talking about her personality traits and the way she portrays emotions and things like that. And her instigating things in the tapes.
The tapes. She sounds sincere. she sounds, but that's a different environment than what she's had to do with pretty much 2 weeks of being told all these. Like, she must go online and see how people respond. She fired her PR team.
Oh, yeah.
In the middle of this trial.
No, she has to know. She knows.
Yeah,
I mean, because she's been living with this longer than the trial. I mean, it's constantly reported on how many signatures are on that Remove Amber Heard from Aquaman 2 petition, which has been up since before this trial, well before.
Yeah. So, that's why it's like like the best case I can give her is if she is telling the truth, she's having a hard time. Because she feels she has to put up a certain type of one-woman show in order to try to sell them. Like, keep looking directly at the jury, like really, cheat your body, play to them.
Connect with them, yeah.
Yeah, tell them, and it does seem like over the top, but I can't, even as someone who doubts the validity of a lot of what she talks about, I can't say, I'm like, I've met people who are really dramatic.
Well, and that to me contributes to this.
She's an actress in LA.
Yeah,
for crying out loud. That's the first thought I had. The first thought I had was, I feel like I'm watching an actor do a monologue in acting class. And
okay.
It was like, it felt like acting class time.
Yeah. I don't know. See, that's the thing, is I can see it, and I don't have a good conclusion based on it. I'm like, I can see what you're talking about, and there are elements of the way that she, it's like you watch Johnny Depp on the stand, and he's very much just like super chill and just answering questions, occasionally laughing, whereas she is there to prove a point, which, to be fair, I mean, she is there to prove a point. It really makes me wonder, because if it is just that her personality is that way, and she's up here giving a testimony, then of course that's going to be consistent with how her personality is, and if that's all true, then she must be sharing her side of the she must believe what she's saying, I guess, is what I imagine, if again we can trust that account of her psychology, because then you hear these tapes and you can hear some instances of like, it sounds like she's in pretty much peril in this recording or whatever. Again, it's one of those things where I feel like in certain ways they're probably both telling what they think is true, and I don't know. It feels to me like there are two teams. The Johnny Depp's team is people who love Johnny Depp, and I feel like Amber Heard's team is mostly people who care about assault victims, not people who really care that much about Amber Heard. And so that's what makes me
I think Johnny Depp has a lot in his camp. More like I think there's the J Depp super fans, and I also think there are people who do suffer domestic violence and believe him. Even I believed Amber Heard at first. You know.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I don't not believe 100% of the things she said, just because, again, looking at all this evidence and looking at the situation, clearly there is abuse between two people happening. And I think what they are trying to do is figure out who the primary abuser was. And that's just a nasty, nasty task.
It was about figuring out if Johnny Depp defended himself or attacked her. If I think
I don't think there's a way to truly know.
You can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. It's hard. It's like you choose to. You have to choose to. You choose what you believe.
Yeah.
That's why I always say this is what I believe. You know, like I'm choosing what I believe here.
Yeah.
Because not one of them goes. I mean, depending on the subject, but like. I haven't heard Johnny Depp in a private conversation ever say, like, I hit you because I was defending myself. Although there was that thing with, like, the toes and, like, having to get away, so he accidentally hurt her.
Yeah, and the whole headbutt thing.
Yeah. And the door on her feet. Like, yeah. So there's that. And then...
The biggest discreditor of Amber Heard for me is the recording... Are those recordings where she's basically saying, like, yeah, I start these fights for this reason, and I didn't hit you, I hit you this way, and your response is invalid because of this.
Well, then you hear all that, and you hear her testify, and then the testimony seems a little bizarre.
Yeah,
then you go, I don't know if I can believe you.
For me, that's the most telltale and the stickiest detail. That's the thing that keeps me coming back to at least her side of this and going, something doesn't feel quite on the level here, and I can't really tell.
Well, the bottle incident, I mean, look it up. I don't want to like fully recount it. It does what a lot of I've heard some people say, like, logically. This is what I mean. They don't say the words logically, but that's what everyone's implying. Is logically, if Johnny Depp did do that bottle incident, wouldn't she want to go to the hospital and get that checked out? She could have suffered injuries from that. There could be an infection. There's a lot of things. Yeah, logically. At the same time, a big problem is many people, especially like in, marital situations, even non-marital, they don't go to the hospital. They don't get checked out. They don't report it. Like it's very, very common. So I'm like, yeah, of course, logically you should, but I'm not going to be here being like, here's why I don't believe that didn't happen. It because of the logic of not getting that checked out.
Logic is always a bad place to turn in assault cases, I think.
Yeah.
We've had too many accounts now not to realize that, like, yeah, you don't necessarily behave logically when these things happen, and especially something as intimate and I don't know, like, you got to feel embarrassed and violated in a myriad of ways after a situation like that probably wouldn't make a lot of people actually want to go seek out, like, let me go find people in public and deal with this,
Yeah, I mean, even when, like, Johnny Depp got his finger cut off, like, he lied and said that he did it, and, I mean, according to his testimony.
To keep Amber's name out of it.
Yeah, and so it's like, if Amber Heard's going there and, like, here's what happened, there's that fear. And there's a lot of reasons I could justify as to why she didn't go, too.
Well,
if that did happen.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like if there's also a position to be like, okay, I got a piece of my finger sliced off, but we're going to protect her still, I feel like that's also indicative of a situation in which those kinds of things might be a little more common than you... Like, if that was a first-time offense and that was the crossing of a line, I don't know if that would be the response. It could be. But it feels to me more indicative of a toxic scenario where things like this actually do kind of happen, and maybe this was an extreme case, but, things like this do happen with us.
Yeah. No, it's just such a heavy accusation.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
And if that is not the truth, in a lot of ways, that doesn't matter for a lot of people because a lot of people already believe it.
If it's not the truth, I mean, if it's not, like, that is among the most vile things you can do is fabricate a scenario like that.
See,
Just
I
full
keep
stop.
going back to how she testifies.
Uh-huh.
I keep going back to that.
That's part of it.
Like, because the thing is, we've seen like countless people testify at this point.
Yeah.
And she's a very specific type of person when she's testifying. And a lot of it seems to be looking at the jury for approval on a lot of her behaviors. There is this one moment that people are saying she posed for a photo, like with the tissue. And usually when I hear that, I'm like, that sounds like a reach. And then when I watch it, I'm like, God damn, it really does seem, I am likely to believe that because you see her like put the tissue on, look up, hold still, click, and then go, you hear the click of the camera, and then go away. And then I'm like, and sure enough, that's the photo.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if she replaced her PR team, I mean, she's aware of things like that. And part of me, the sympathetic side of me goes, well, that's smart because that's one of the assets that you especially need to play into. But at the same time, it is a contrivance. It is a bit disingenuous if that is in fact the case.
Yeah. It rings like I don't know where to land on that.
It doesn't ring at least like a genuine, like, I'm just wiping a tear.
Like, that bottle story is so horrific. And for someone to say, like, where's the evidence? I'm like, I would say, get out of here with that. It's really hard to, if that's a private moment, it's really hard to just be like, well, why don't you take photos? Like, you can't just say that to someone, you know?
Yeah.
You can't.
When you're in that position, you take photos.
And the thing is, that story in particular, it's like, again, if that is the truth, then bravery for sharing that and doing this. If that is not the truth, it is such an evil, manipulative thing to do to people who are watching this. She knows people are watching this. Terrible to do to Johnny Depp, you know, and terrible to do to Johnny Depp. But there are, like I said, there are individuals who have had instances like that and worse, and consistently in domestic partnerships that would then that makes them immediately, like, you would just believe that person. Like, there are people who would just instantly believe that. There are people though who have been in those situations who don't believe her though for that case, and not just because they're Johnny Depp super fans, because they'll be like, well, here's a lot of things of why this doesn't sound real, and a lot of it comes down to the way she paints it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you got to help yourself just as much as any of the other witnesses have, on your side have to help you.
It's like she kind of talks like the issue I have, and I know it sounds like I'm making a joke. It's the issue I had when I was trying to read Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood book.
Okay.
That would flip between telling, like, okay, sometimes his book sounds like a novel. Most of the time he's writing the non-dialogue scenes, like action lines in a script.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem like she's really I don't know.
Really like reliving a memory.
Yeah, it sounds it's like, sometimes it reads to me that, you remember Breaking Bad when Walter White made that fake confession about Hank in the last season?
Yeah.
Sometimes it reads like that, but a worse performance than that.
Yay.
You know, so yeah,
it's so hard to tell. It's so hard to tell because I can't. Sometimes things just come out awkward and stiff, or some people aren't very good at acting.
Yeah, obviously we're trying to be a little bit fair here.
I think compared to 99% of the discourse, we've entertained both sides pretty well. Because I don't know, ultimately justice for somebody, justice.
I like
so hard.
Here, I'll end it with this. The trial's not done. There's more to come. There's counter. I'm blanking on so many words for a discussion video.
Like counter depositions?
No.
Cross-examination.
Yeah, there's cross-examination. There's cross-examination. There's more to come out, you know? And this was the first time I've ever really let's listen to Amber Heard talk. And I went in with an open mind. And as much as I just remember hearing her cry and be like, let me pull up my phone and look at this.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. There are certain things that you should just never do. Like, there's a certain percentage of this where I'm just like, it's just two people who are really abusive towards each other. Although there are certain allegations where I'm just like, that's something no person should ever do and be allowed to just maintain their happy life from, if some of these, nastier allegations are true. So, I mean, for me personally, I don't feel like I'll ever know the answer, and I'm probably going to remember this whenever I think of either of them from now on. But yeah, it's going to keep unfolding. And then there's going to be another trial in the fall. So we'll have this to relive again. Get ready for Christmas with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Yeah, I don't know. I can't discredit her entirely because I think there's a zealousness that people have in doing so, and I think it's a bit dangerous for the overall discourse for that to happen. But I think there's a lot of legitimate skepticism, I think, about how she's approaching this. And leading into this trial, and even before these trials were a thing, she didn't have always the best reputation on a personal level. Not to say that
like
Johnny,
her ex-wife and stuff.
Yeah, and that is what it is. The past, as we said for Johnny Depp, the past is the past. Now is what we're talking about. But at the same time, I don't want to fully. I can't.
But she had
good conscience.
She was in the transition process of leaving that relationship and then went right into this one.
Yeah, no, that is rarely a recipe for a good relationship.
So I'm saying if she was that person in that relationship, then I'm like, I don't think she changed.
Not just getting into this relationship. Now I'm a whole new person. Yeah, totally. And I mean, you can see too things where people who start out really all about each other, as they described, like, oh man,
it's obsession.
Yeah, and like you said, the passion can often be driven by a certain kind of dysfunction and a certain kind of pain. And I feel like more than anything else we've learned here, it's just that these two people harmonized pain and trauma and got a lot more of it in the process.
But even when she's testifying, and maybe this is just a smart choice on Johnny Depp's end, he does not watch her. He does not look up at her.
That was the thing, as I was watching
for hours to be that committed to hurting your neck and back because you just refuse to look up at your abuser.
Yeah, it's interesting. See, again, it's
whereas she just looks at him coldly, this weird mannequin look that she has.
I was watching. Yeah, you watch her during all of his testimonies, and for the most part, she's very still, and then occasionally we'll get that verge of tears face. And then kind of oscillate between the two.
The whole trial seems like she's been trying to cry and just can't quite get there.
Yeah, I can't tell if it's somebody who's too exhausted to cry or somebody who's really trying to cry.
When you're making that face for hours and hours on end, I'm talking about when she's testifying, you'd think a real tear would. Couple streams might come out a little bit.
Yeah, you would imagine after a couple of weeks at this, the emotional toll has to weigh.
Yeah, there'd have to be a little bit of I'm finally talking,
But then again, I mean, the other thing,
it might be so bottled up and repressed.
They've already tested. She's already had to testify this stuff once and live for months with just this whole situation. I'm sure absorbing her life. So again, the problem for me is I can never get to a thing where I'm 100%. Nah, for her.
I understand. At this current moment, I have a really hard time believing her. I do. I'm mainly going off of, I already had an opinion, but then watching, and nor am I saying Johnny Depp's a fucking saint, But so, yeah. The image that he's painted of her sounds like a weird choice to say, a choice of words to say.
Painted with my finger.
But it's but it sounds like a fair portrayal of what he believes to be his abuser. She is describing something else entirely.
I get what you mean.
You know what I mean?
The appearance definitely does feel that way.
So that's what just makes me even more doubtful. You're trying too hard. But I don't know. Maybe like for all I know, she might whip something out next week, and I'm like, holy shit. I take back everything.
Yeah, it's not over
Like-
till it's over, and it's probably not over then either.
They have to. This is a sales pitch to the jury.
It
you
is
know?
100%. Yeah.
You can't. And one of the biggest things is you got to plant the seed. What you got to do in a court trial is you plant the seed so that way when the people start coming up defending the individual, you're doubting it. Mm-hmm. But you have to really bring it home in the end. You know?
Yeah, you got to put the stamp on it.
It's like there's more audio. There's more shit. There's so much more shit.
Yeah.
They could have just like, let me just dump all this in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But they didn't do that. You got to spread it out. You know,
you got to build the narrative.
You got to build to the finale. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's the impression you're going to be left with.
Yeah.
Because you got to convince 10 people of your side.
Yeah. And
or how many people are in a jury?
12 usually, right?
12?
10, 12 people.
10, 12 people somewhere there. Yeah.
You know, a baker's dozen. Yeah. I mean, where I am right now is basically that. And like, clearly there was abuse between two people, and what I'm dubious about, or what I'm curious as to the legitimacy of, is the most extreme claims of like direct abuse that I don't think could have come out of some kind of blackout scenario and unprovoked. You know, like those truly dastardly allegations are the ones I'm most curious about, because I think, again, this well establishes that they abused each other through their relationship for whatever understandable reason or not. You know, I feel like that is true. So I don't really fall on the side of like, nah, just Johnny. Fuck it. You know, like it is a very human, like it gets people very charged for very legitimate reasons, and if I remove myself from the emotion and you know the experiences of people I know, it is a fascinating just experiment to peer in on in terms of, you know, psychology and sociology.
Well, it's not like, it's because the reason why it's so one-sided, I mean, the thing I'm constantly bitching about is how there seems to be a lack of gray with any subject in this world. Like, you know,
got to choose one. And once you've chosen, you can never unchoose that.
Yeah,
you can never act on new information.
And you will be judged from your previous belief. Yeah. Like it's like, you know, like there seems to be such a hypocrisy with the idea of growth and change. Mm-hmm. Like you should, and then when you do, nuh-uh. You know?
Yeah,
you're in hell. So
you can never make the right decision.
Yeah, so it's a pain in the ass.
Well, that's
oh my God, it's happening again. There was a point, something about what were you just saying, John? This one gets cut out during all the edits.
Just the shadow of a doubt stuff. The sort of like the biggest, most damning allegations.
Something about them being abusive or something like that.
Well, yeah, just to me, the truth of the matter right now is that at very least it seems evident they both were abusive toward each other for various reasons, and I just don't know if the most vile and the most sort of clearly victim and aggressor ones are the truth.
See, I can believe a scenario. This is where you piss off the world. I can believe a scenario of Johnny Depp being so inebriated that he doesn't remember doing it.
I absolutely believe that's possible.
I've seen it happen in life. He's a bit of a rock and roll star, you know?
Yeah.
Even though in his testimony, he is saying like he doesn't ever get to that point where he doesn't, you know, and like those photos I don't think are condemning, damning evidence. I don't believe they are condemning. I'm like, he's passed out.
Did you see the way that ice cream hit his lap?
He's got a crazy lifestyle. He works weird hours, you know?
Yeah.
I've fallen asleep in this room.
Yeah.
This very room I've fallen asleep in, just like at a computer.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, oh God, I just dozed off while editing.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
You know?
And you're a drunk and an addict for doing so.
Yeah.
But
I don't think... I really don't believe, though, that he's... I could be wrong.
He doesn't seem like a malicious guy.
He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would get emotional to the point he would strike you. Right.
It doesn't seem as though.
The only way I could believe he would might have hit it was if he was that inebriated and it wasn't a fight.
Either that or in a situation where there were already hands being thrown or something.
Yeah, or something.
know?
Yeah, where he was already been provoked.
Like
I don't know.
Like it's weird, and this is we broach
trying to end this, but it's not. It's not. That's what I mean. It's a never-ending talk.
Well, yeah, and
that's why there's channels who have committed their lives to it.
yeah, no, I mean, you could just because there's so much to the human nuance and the weird gray areas, and to the fact that we're zooming in and focusing in on little details way more than you do under normal circumstances, and those can cause those details to unfold or to suggest things that you might not have seen, and also too there's the bias of what are you looking for, because you might just find what you're looking for rather than what is actually happening. Like there's so much to it, and it's really fascinating because while it's created this very polar division, it's like, to me, a very unpolarized situation when you really dig deep into it. And yeah, I feel like something could have happened where if he was blacked out, sure, which is its own thing that should have consequences that should be dealt with.
It's not saying it did. We're not here saying he did do that. I'm saying that's the scenario I could believe.
That's
if they prove that.
That's what seems most likely.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it would have had to have happened at some point.
But I don't know. I don't know where to land on this.
Yeah.
Well, this is why we don't do daily videos. We don't want to make the channel about this.
No.
But it's something that, is a part of entertainment media now. This is why, that thing that Drew Barrymore, did you see that thing when Drew Barrymore had to friggin' apologize for talking with Anthony Anderson about the trial?
Oh no, what did
and she was talking. She was pretty much the language and the description of her experience was talking about it in a way that's like entertainment.
Oh.
And which rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah, because it shouldn't be. It's become that. It's a circus, but it shouldn't be entertainment.
It shouldn't be, but I think too for millions of people it certainly is.
This is for millions of people, this is the best TMZ episode you could ask for.
You could go on TikTok and you'll see a ton of people just being like, get him a popcorn ready,
that Michael Jackson gif has to be everywhere.
No, it's like this is a source of, this has become a main source of entertainment. And like I said, I could be here every day without John because I keep up to date with this, and I really listen. I don't just listen to clips, I'm really paying attention.
No, yeah. Whenever I go to examine the trial, I'm like, where's that 7-hour live stream? Let me put this on 1.75 speed.
Yeah, right. You can see my red mark and where I'm at. I'm catching up too, because we share the same account. So
you're watching on Law and Crime?
Law and Crime Network.
Okay, maybe I'll switch to them. I've been on NBC. Maybe their coverage is better.
This is what pops up for me when that's what I use. It's a really fascinating thing, and people are eating it up like a form of entertainment, and even people got to be honest about that.
Mm-hmm.
Even before people who are taking this serious, it's really hard for me to come on here and just make jokes about this, and just do funny meme reactions and shit like that.
Because I think to be able to do that, you have to have a conclusion. You have to feel like or because a lot of people feel like they know,
or have a distance from it.
Yeah, these people don't really matter to me. Haha.
I want to make jokes about Ezra Miller.
Mm-hmm.
If I was seeing videos of him throwing a chair at a woman and damaging her face.
Yeah,
and so now it's making me. I mean, I don't think I made jokes in that video, but
not making light of that scenario.
No. That's the. I don't know. I'm trying to use a different example. Didn't make jokes about Will Smith. That was stupid though. That's not the same.
It's a different.
This is a different thing. Yeah, it's not the same thing as this shit.
Yeah.
That's a very different subject.
There's a ladder.
Yeah.
And the slapping is rung 1.
It's not the biblical times of every sin is equal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Must be judged. But
I mean, it's fascinating and engrossing, but it more just makes me sad than like, oh, fun. It's not entertainment.
I don't think this is. Am I amused and entertained by it? Of course I am. I think a lot of us are.
Oh yeah,
At the same time, I wouldn't necessarily use the words. At times, this trial is fucking boring as shit. Right?
It's like a drama that happens to be funny on occasion, because life is occasionally funny. It's like, yeah, Johnny Depp will make a remark that's kind of a zinger and it's funny, but yeah, at the same time, the situation at hand is very painful.
You get invested, It's like,
it's engrossing.
All you people who watch like true crime documentaries who want to be like, this is not entertaining. I'm like, okay, well, let's look up your Netflix account and see if you like.
Murders are different.
Yeah.
Murders are less messed up than interpersonal relationship violence.
All right.
Which are arguably might be true.
And then the one thing we didn't touch on is the subject too of like men who suffer domestic violence.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that like there are men who laugh at this subject.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she hit you, so what? Don't be a pussy.
Which, I mean, and Johnny Depp coming from the family with a mother who apparently abused his father, and
it's triggering.
And
it's common. It's much more of an accepted standard for a woman to slap a guy. Like, he was out of line, he messed up, he cheated, or something, like whatever it is. He was being stupid.
That's the realm I would be curious to hear people who know a lot more than me unpack that one, because part of me is like, well, if we do live in this weird in this equal world, it's like nobody should hit anybody, and I still kind of have that belief from how just the kind of default settings of growing up of like, yeah, man doesn't hit woman, it's just not something you do, that's bad, it's immediate line cross. But then I think of these situations where it's just like two people fighting each other, and like that's why I guess it comes down to the primary aggressor question, because after a certain point, part of me, if you isolate the worst allegations and certain other things, it is just sort of like, this is just two toxic people fighting each other, and so if hands were thrown on both sides, it seems like it cancels out, not that it cancels the actions taken and the harm done by those, but it cancels out like the innocence factor to me, where it's just like, you're kind of both on that level together, and there's that view of like, well, it's immediately fucked up if it's a man hitting a woman, which again, I still have that in my DNA, but at the same time it makes me curious about like, well, if you just have two people who are fighting back and forth, and you don't know yet who the primary aggressor is, like what is that situation exactly? Like if a woman is laying into a guy and hitting him a bunch, and he hits back, what are the rules of that? Like, I'm actually curious to hear some good theory and thought on that, because I haven't really had to think much about that.
I mean,
I feel like
my train of thought is like, if she's punching him a bunch or something, you gotta like push her away, or
you block or push her away, or whatever,
or like use your foot to like kick her away.
But if you're talking about a situation in which a man
like clock them in the face, like get away from me.
Yeah, if you are a man I guess to clarify, if you are a man in an abusive situation, for example, and you are being physically harmed in either repeatedly or in a specific incident, what are the rules of that? Like, what are what is messed up to, what kind of retaliation or defensive measure is messed up? And I think there's a pretty clear line you can find of when defense transfers, when you go too far, and then it's like, whoa, slow down, like now you're flying off the handle. But, in an abusive situation where the male is the victim, what are the full ethics of that?
Missile strike is too far.
Yes, you don't launch a missile on your partner. But yeah, because
right there you've lost a fight.
Because there's that immediate thing of like, if a man hits a woman, that's kind of an immediate like violent assault. Like, there's something very ugly that naturally comes to that I don't take any issue with the response thereof. But yeah, if it's if that type of abuse is happening and it's physical abuse towards a man, what are the rules? When are you not fucked up in defending physically, I guess.
We'll keep a lookout for our Doctor Strange spoiler talk.
After this delightful, brief sojourn into the real world.
A lot of our audience is listening to this trial.
Mm-hmm. A lot of everybody's listening to this trial.
Let's see what else our audience is listening to. Oh, hey, they're watching this obscure documentary. Yeah, let's cover that now.
Yeah, let's watch some.
Let's do it all.
Some horrific true crime series. React to the dirty details.
This video is finally done, or audio, depending on what we decide.
We did it.
See you guys.
Aquaman 2.